Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome
Hello.
to everyone who is watching this program on replay, and thank you for joining us. My name is Allan Smith. I am the creator of the Rare Book Cafe, and I am sitting in for Stephen Eisenstein, Stephen the Bookman Eisenstein, who is the regular host here on the Rare Book Cafe. Rare Book Cafe is the first and only Blab TV show in the entire world about antiquarian books. Thank you for joining us on Blab.im. A regular guest today is my friend Lindsay Thompson, who is the proprietor of Henry Bemis Books in Charlotte, North Carolina. And a little later on, we will have Thorne Donnelley, who of Liberty Books in West Palm Beach, Florida. Our special guest today is Libby Ware of Toadlily Books in Atlanta, Georgia, who is also the president of the Georgia Antiquarian Booksellers Association. And Libby is going to be talking to us, among other things, about the upcoming Georgia Antiquarian Book Fair, which I know that's not the exact name of it, but you will fill us in on that.
Yes.
Later in the program, we will be dealing with some hidden treasures. We'll be showing you some special things that I think Libby will have some, and Lindsay will have some, and perhaps I'll have some too, and I think Thorne Donnelley will probably have some as well. Thorne Donnelley is returning to us from the Rare Book School, where he has had several courses, and we look forward to hearing his report on how things went at Rare Book School. If you don't mind, and you see over there on the left, there's an opportunity to click the little bird and let everybody know that we're on the air. We appreciate it if you would do that. If you have questions, type a slash and the letter Q and a space and type in your question. This will make it easier for us to see the question. A pair of hands that you see in the corner of each picture, Blab calls those props. They're really applause. It's an applause meter.
Oh, okay.
And Stephen likes to point out it's the only way that we get paid. It's the only thing we get, the only way we get any payment for this activity. So go ahead and click the props if you like what you're hearing. If you're new to the program, you'll find out that there are other episodes of the Rare Book Cafe. You can find them on the YouTube channel for the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair, and you can also find them on floridabookfair.blogspot.com, floridabookfair.blogspot.com. So, Libby, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We are so happy to see you again. Libby's been on the program before. We have a special feature that we call the third degree, but we're not going to put Libby through that because she's already been through it on one of the other programs. So we're not going to be doing that. But tell us about what's happening in your life and in the world of rare books in Georgia.
Okay. Well, we are getting ready for the Georgia Book and Paper Show, and we are having it in connection with the Decatur Book Festival, which is a very large book festival. We get like almost 60,000 people that attend, and Decatur is a small town just right next to Atlanta, and the whole downtown over Labor Day weekend turns into a book festival with a lot of all different places. Yeah, the only thing I hate about having a book fair at the same time is I don't get to go to the book festival. But I was the only one that felt that way. So if you're going to come, we are going to be in the basement of the First Baptist Church. They have a gymnasium, and that's where we'll be. And we decided to call it the Book and Paper Show because so many people deal in ephemera, postcards, things like that right now. So we decided to include that in the name. So I and a couple other people are busy working on that.
So now the book fair, or your book, or the book and paper fair, is as I understand it, down the hill and just a little bit separated from the book fair. Is that right? So, or the book festival. Is that right?
Not exactly, because there are readings and author appearances in the church where we are. But yes, we're around the corner from the entrance to church, so it's a little bit off the beaten track. But we hope to have a lot of signs out this year. I think our signage wasn't so great last year. One of the main comments about was that we needed more signs. So we're going to make it easier for people to find us this year.
So but it is, if you want to go to that, in addition to going to the book festival, then you really have to look for it and find where your location is. Right.
Yes.
So,
maps.
So tell us what people are going to find there. What are people going to find at both shows? Now the book festival, excuse me, as I understand it, excuse me, the book festival is new books as well as.
Yeah. So,
go ahead.
Yeah. Take a minute. Mostly what it is, it's different programs. So you'll have, and they have a very vibrant children's program. They have a lot of children's book authors that come in, and they do participatory things with the children. And there's different locations all through downtown where other authors are who have put out books, this year, or in the recent past. And so that's kind of spread out. Sometimes you'll find yourself traveling from one end of downtown to the other end to try to, make it to the next program that you want to go to. And so at each of those spots, one of the independent bookstores in town is selling books for, say, that location. So like there's a Holiday Inn Conference Center. And so Kara's Books, which is one of the independent booksellers, they have every author that's going to appear in that spot. They'll have their books. So what happens is after the readings, everybody swarms, out and gets the books. And what's really exciting to me is I had a novel that was published this year, and I'm going to be one of the authors at the book festival.
Oh, that's right. You have a novel that's, as I understand, is doing very well so far.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and it's called Lum, L-U-M, and it takes place during the Depression in the Southwest Virginia mountains, and it's at the time of the Blue Ridge Parkway and how that affects the people that there.
At the time that they were building it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, so my main character is an intersex person, which is kind of what people used to call Aphrodite, but now the preferred term is intersex. And so she's a woman who was just told not to expect to marry. And so what happens is that she pretty much works, doesn't have a fixed residence, but she goes from one relative's house to another to take care of, anybody that's sick or a baby, or just help out, in the area. And so it's about how, essentially she changes throughout the book. And there's a lot of flashbacks to her childhood that kind of explain how she got where she is today.
Now that is on, that's been on several bestseller lists. Is that right?
Not necessarily bestseller list, but I have won some awards.
Oh, you have?
Yeah. On 3 awards, and I was a finalist for 3 others.
Oh, tell us about those.
Okay, so the first one where I got what they call the gold medal is the Independent Publishers Association. They call them IPPs, and their award ceremony was in Chicago. And so well, a lot of these signing in the LGBT category, and so mine's got the gold medal in the LGBT category. And then probably the most impressive one is that it was awarded the honor book from the American Library Association Stonewall Group.
Oh, great.
Yeah, yeah. And then I won an International Book Award. And there are a couple others that I was shortlisted for. One's the Lambda Literary. And I was a finalist, but I didn't win on that one. So it's been very exciting. I really, I did not expect that kind of success, to tell you the truth.
Well, you certainly show a sense of the coming issue, since it arrived in bookstores just before we got on the map with HB2 up here in North Carolina. And all of a sudden, our governor is saying the whole country needs to have a debate about these kinds of issues.
Indeed. So what can people expect to find at the paper fair?
Okay, so we're going to have a lot of dealers. A lot of them will be from Georgia and Florida, and then we've got other people who are coming down from Illinois and Virginia, different places. And so we'll have quite a variety of collectible books. Some people do kind of like what is like, pop books, like things that were popular like in the 80s even or 90s. That's kind of a new specialization that's coming out. Some people will have like old Americana, Civil War books like that. You'll find modern first editions, you'll find cookbooks, you'll find esoteric and occult books and children's books and illustrated books. I mean, pretty much you name it, somebody there is going to have it. We've got about, I think, 35 dealers at this point. So it's not going to be a huge show, but we're just kind of, this is our second year in this location. And so every time you move location, unfortunately, we've been moving around. And I think this is going to be our home for a while. And pretty much people that came last year had good shows. Because you'll have both collectors and you'll have people who just kind of wander in because they're out at the book festival. And I've actually had pretty good sales with some of the people that just kind of drop by.
So you had last year. You had people who discovered your antiquarian book dealers as a result of being at the festival and discovering you, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
How many members are there of the Georgia Antiquarian Booksellers Association?
I can't answer that. Probably, I would say about 20.
Oh, okay.
And most of us are around the Atlanta area, and that's just a guess. I'd have to really go to the website and check it out.
But most of them are going to be part of the show, is that right?
Right. Yeah.
And I know that quite a large number of your membership comes down to Florida for the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty much the same people that go to Florida and will be here. Yeah.
Which I neglected to mention, and Stephen will probably laugh at me because I've neglected to mention that the Rare Book Cafe is brought to you by the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair, and this year the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair will be in April instead of its usual date in March. It will be April 21st, 22nd, and 23rd at the Coliseum, where it usually is, at the Coliseum in St. Petersburg. It's a beautiful old venue. It's an old it served as a dance hall in the 20s where major dance bands came and performed. It's been preserved. It has a beautiful floor. It's got an arched ceiling, and it's just a beautiful venue. Wouldn't you agree, Libby?
Oh yeah, it's a wonderful venue.
Well, we have a special segment of our program called Hidden Treasures, and Hidden Treasures is an opportunity to share some special books that you have that may have come in over the last week or so, or may have ones that you have that you'd like to share that show some of the volumes could be like. So let me first ask you, Libby, do you have some things that you'd like to share in that category?
Yeah. I didn't think to get things off the shelf ahead of time so I could kind of hold it up and you could see it. But one of the best things I have gotten recently is a book by Amelia Earhart, and it is signed by her. And also in the back, there is a little recording of Amelia Earhart. And so that's
and when was that published? When was that published?
Oh gosh. You caught me. I'd have to look at it. I'd have to look at it. Yeah. But I can't even remember when it was that she disappeared.
I think it was 1937,
about
wasn't
what
it?
Time period would be?
That's about right. 1937.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and something else I got, which I can't decide if I'm going to sell or keep, is I got an old women's suffragist magazine from 1906, which is pretty cool. And on the cover, it has a picture of a man and a woman, and they're holding a sign that says "Votes for Both." And it was one of the slogans that they used, so that instead of singling out women, they were just saying, well, both men and women are going to have votes. And so that was something, discussed and, decided on. And I had never heard of that. All I've ever heard about is votes for women. So I thought that was an interesting way of, bringing men and women into it.
What do you have anything close by that you can show us?
Okay, I'd have to step back to my shelves.
Okay, give you a moment to do that. Lindsay, do you have some things that you might
Sure. I got a few things. One that I'm getting ready to ship out is a charming little book from 1949. It's the first edition by the actor James Mason and his then wife, Pamela Kellino. It's called The Cats in Our Lives.
The Cats in Our Lives.
The Mason family were apparently enormous cat fanciers.
And when was that published?
1949. And this is an account of their life with lots and lots of cats. And it includes illustrations by James Mason, of which you see one here on the cover.
Oh, my goodness. Now, this is the actor, James Mason.
Yes, that's correct.
Isn't that cool?
So he turns out to be quite a talented artist. And this is a book I've been hoping would find a home for over a year. I've almost sold it a couple of times, and now I'm getting ready to ship it out to Holland to a very nice lady who saw it online and put in an order.
Oh, wow.
One of the things that we do a lot of here is regional history. And this is a real prize for folks who live in the Charlotte area or from around here. A book called If This Be Treason by David Ovens. This came out in 1958, the year that David Ovens died. And what makes it significant is that Ovens was a Canadian store clerk who caught the idea of the founder of the Ivy's department store chain.
Okay, I've got some of my newest buys.
Let me let Lindsay finish here with a thing he's showing us, and then we'll be right to you.
Okay, yeah, I'm having mine says make sure your connection isn't blocked by a firewall. I had Lindsay on here before, but it's not showing me him.
Refresh your
Okay.
browser, and you should come back.
Okay.
Lindsay?
And so Ovens was a Canadian store clerk who happened to catch the idea of the founder of the Ivy's department store chain, which was located here in Charlotte until Belk's bought them out. And so he came to Charlotte in 1908, ended up becoming Ivy's right-hand man, and in the process became Mr. Culture in Charlotte. He sponsored virtually every prominent cultural institution we have in the city now, from museums to art collections to the symphony to opera. You name it, David Ovens' fingerprints were all over it.
Oh, my.
And he, oddly enough, his one quirk was that he detested modern architecture. And so in the late 1950s, late in his life, the city built a new Coliseum and concert hall and hired an architect called A.G. Odell, whose style was aggressively modernist, to design the auditorium. And of course, they named it after David Ovens, who clenched his teeth and said, "Thanks very much." It's a very nice copy of and basically a history of the first 50 years of the 20th century in Charlotte, and it has a long, very affectionate inscription by Ovens on the frontispiece to a local resident who apparently knew him well, because also tucked into the book is a mimeograph of a poem that was written and read at a banquet celebrating David Ovens' 85th birthday.
Oh, my goodness.
In 1957. So you always want to check inside books as well as how they look, because you never know what people have tucked into them.
Indeed.
And so that's my report, and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you, Lindsay. Libby.
I'd like to ask Lindsay a question. So, Lindsay, do you have an open shop?
I'm all internet at this point.
Okay. I was just wondering, because my brother lives in Charlotte, and I go up there from time to time, so I didn't know if you had a place.
Well, I'd be delighted to meet if you're ever up this way. Just give me a heads up. The last time somebody came to visit me, I had just finished mowing the lawn.
Okay. And
it was a typical August hot afternoon like we're having now. And I looked like a drowned rat. And up came a car into the driveway, and I thought, well, they're looking for directions. And in fact, it was a man from Australia.
Oh, my God.
Who had come across Henry Bemis' books on the internet, happened to be in town on business, and dragooned a friend of him to drive out and see what I was about. And I said, well, I'm about 6'4" and soaking wet today. But we had a nice chat.
I suppose
he was looking for some Dr. Seuss first editions. And I had one that met the bill. And so that was very gratifying to think that someone had seen it, registered that we existed, and had actually come to find us. I felt real that day.
Yeah. I suppose we can assume, Lindsay, that you were not Natalie dressed in your bow tie when you were. Oh
no! It's way too hot to mow the grass in a bow tie.
Yeah. It is.
Today it's so hot that I felt like ice cream sherbet, and so I got out one of my sherbet shirts.
It is the South, though.
It is.
South.
We've had a month and a half of 95 plus degrees virtually every day.
Oh my goodness!
It has been unusually hot, and I even have plants in the yard that are well established that are threatening to die on me.
Oh no! So, Libby, what do you have?
Okay, so I pulled a couple things out. It's some ephemera. So, see if you can see that. Harlem Globetrotters. Okay. It's from 1951-52. And apparently that's their silver anniversary season. There's one in Atlanta who I think will look at.
Has anyone seen the commercial that's running now on television where the Harlem Globetrotter is attached to a helicopter, pulled up in the air, and shoots from way high above the basket, and of course hits it?
Let's see, here's the Crisis magazine from 1922. And that was the magazine of the NAACP. So I like collecting those. Now here's one from the Williams Jubilee Singers. And this company toured England, Scotland, and Wales. I'm trying to see where the date was. I think the date is 1909. So people that are African American and music, I think that would be something good.
Oh, that's very interesting.
And something I bought just yesterday. It's an early copy of Huck Finn. Know how well that'll show. But Huckleberry Finn was originally published in 1884, and this is from 1889. I think a lot of these have covers, so they look slick. So, you know, the thing I like to get are some African American, and I like to do illustrated books, and I also sell books about book collecting. So this is a nice hefty book, an illustrated book.
Western tradition.
Yeah, so that's a smattering of things I've just recently gotten. I also sell, I have a lot of occult and esoteric and LGBT. I have a lot of lesbian pulps if people are interested in those. And let's see, cookbooks I always do well with. So those are my main categories.
In LGBT titles, is your stock mainly newer or current items, or do you go back into older, harder to find things as well?
I like to go before 1970.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, 50s, 60s and earlier. Yeah.
Because people don't believe me when I tell them that some of the first LGBT specific bookstores 40 odd years ago had trouble finding enough books to stock.
I believe it, yeah.
That it truly was fugitive literature before that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so many of them, you know, they were the pulps, and so they were very cheaply done, and, you know, probably sold in drugstores and, you know, stations and train stations and things like that. But there's also, you know, some good literature that was published, say, in the, you know, 1930s or 1940s, and I would like to look for those.
Well, that was one of the odd ironies of Patricia Highsmith's career.
Right.
She wrote the book that became I think The Price of Salt, which made her a small fortune as a paperback pulp.
Mm-hmm.
But then she couldn't really exploit her fame because her publisher was convinced if anybody knew she had written it, it would kill her career. Right. So she pretty much denied her own best-selling book until probably 35, 40 years later.
Yeah.
Which tells just how odd the world has been.
Yeah, because she had a pseudonym, and I'm trying to remember what it was. It was Claire something, and so that's how it was published. Because then she wanted to go on and write her more mainstream novels under her own name. And a lot of those have kind of a gay subtext, like Strangers on a Train. You know, there's kind of like this flirtation between these two men, you know, without being overtly gay. A lot of them have that about, you know, like men who switched identities or, you know, something like that.
I was always impressed growing up at how plainly Mary Renault had hidden sight for so many years writing historical novels.
Right.
And no one seems to have noticed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, Claire Morgan was the name on The Price of Salt. Yeah.
Thorne, welcome.
Well, that was quite interesting. I think I sold about 15 books to 3 groups of people while I was off there. So naturally, on the one day when my manager doesn't show up, we do have this, and usually around 2:30 to 3:30, had a very busy time, and I literally have been slammed since the moment that you saw me hook up. So it was pretty consistent, and we sold everything from a couple books on battleships to the newest Harry Potter book to speaking of classics, Lolita. So my group of books from Harry Potter to Lolita to the Iowa class battleship directory. Go figure out what my clientele was. It ranged in 75 to 17. Multiracial, multicultural, multi-gender. That's the fun about having a brick and mortar store. You never know who or what's walking in the front door. So
absolutely.
I learned something yesterday. I have a small section of Bibles. We have a spirituality section, and we have the Koran and some other works too there. And my family's been printing Bibles for a better part of 150 years. So not that I'm an expert on Bibles, but I know a little bit about selling them. And a gentleman from Florida, where I was born, we were born in the same hospital, bought a Bible yesterday. And he said, "Oh, you charge me tax." And I'm going, "Well, yeah, it's tax on books." In the great state of Florida, Bibles are not taxed.
I did not know that.
And when I went to check this out, you have to go to the state of Florida. It's fairly complicated to find out, but it's true. But the first thing I found out was that there's a lawsuit that's been filed against the state of Florida for discrimination. Not, however, by people of the Jewish faith, Islamic faith, or anything that we would probably logically think about. I believe the term is Wickians, which are the good witches.
Oh, right.
Are suing for discrimination of the Bible being tax-free. Oh, and biblical regalia, priest uniforms, that kind of priest outfits, that kind of thing, are also tax-free. But apparently, the witches' outfits, which I guess they buy at, I don't know, Walmart, apparently are taxed. And I'm reading this lawsuit and I'm going, well, that's not what I expected the first sale of the day to lead to. So I thought a little bit of book trivia.
Well, it's certainly an interesting point in terms of the prohibition of the government favoring one religion over another. And clearly, the same issue came up back in the spring when the Tennessee legislature was looking at making the Bible the official state book.
Right.
And so the question came up as to whether or not that would be a legally enforceable preference of one religion over another, and that's part of why the bill didn't pass. So the witches may be onto something there.
I just thought, this all went down about within 10 minutes of my opening the store on my first day back in from University of Virginia, and I'm going, well, I guess I missed retail.
Well, Thorne, we're happy to accommodate anytime, whatever small part we played in the diversity and the intensity of your clientele today. We're happy we could accommodate.
Well, thanks. It's unusual that I have both you guys, and I have a very loyal employee who called me last night with the flu. So she's out of town. My manager, who will fill in for her, has got her kids up at Legoland. And so one of the joys of a small shop is I don't have a whole lot of employees. One of the bad news is when the backup and the trash collector is me.
Well, we had a guest a while back who's out in California, and he was operating his shop even as he was talking to us. So he finally had to leave rather abruptly, I think, but he had to leave because he had a customer or some customers come in, and he absolutely needed to deal with them. So we totally understand that.
Yeah.
So, Thorne, talk to us about the Rare Book School and how things went there.
Well, it was probably the class is one of the foundations. It's called the bibliographical descriptive bibliography, which is oddly enough is primarily done for English language books. The science of it, if you will, got started by a guy named Greg back in the 1880s, 1890s in England, was picked up by a couple more fellows, and then pretty much became, for some reason, headquartered at the University of Virginia. A guy named Tansel was involved with it, a guy named, two or three of the larger books involved were published at the University of Virginia or gone through it. So what you have there is a course which is dealt with the physical description of a book. Really not that much about the literary whatsoever. And primarily, it surprised me tremendously, concentrating on pre-1800 or at least letterpress books. The reason for that being, primarily one of the first things you're looking at is format. And format being done from, as we all know, the folio, the octavo, the duodecimo, all of those various sizes, is done by the folding of the paper. Well, once you start having machine-made paper, which comes off on big rolls, you can't do it. There's whole chapters involved on how to fold it and which are there and where the watermarks are and when they come up in a folded book. And we're looking at things with fluorescent scopes to track down watermarks and all that kind of good things. But it really is before 1800, which happens to be a time period that I like very much. The second stage of the thing is called a collation formula, which runs into basically counting. And you think about, why would you want to do this? You're counting, I don't have any really great examples here, signatures, gatherings.
Right.
At the signatures, which in the old books are the little letters on the bottom that indicate, sometimes they're on only the first couple of pages of a gathering, sometimes they're all the way through. What it amounts to, though, is you'll end up with a formula stating that usually the first part of a book, the printer's reserved for the preface, the dedication page, the title page, all that kind of thing. Hi, can I help you with that?
Hi. Yeah. I need some books.
No, what's the book, though, yeah.
Yeah, how much are your books?
They're kind of expensive.
Oh, I love books too, though. You know what I got from the library? CDs. I love those.
I'm on the conference call here, hon. Okay, so
What?
we're actually.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
I'll come back another
Okay,
day.
another time.
I live down here in City Walk at this.
Okay, can I have a candy, please?
Yeah. Next time I come back, now look at have another candy.
Don't get that, hon. We got to do some business here, okay?
All right, thank you. Have a peppermint.
Have a peppermint.
Thank you. What's your
My
name?
name's Thorne, and I'm a little busy.
Can I have
Okay.
your card?
I don't have one. Okay, there's one
Oh,
right
it's
there.
right here.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. I need some because I'm not. You believe me? Thank you.
At any rate, so it's the collation, which you need when you're looking. We do have a lot of street people here, and I recognize her. She's very sweet. She comes in for candy, and she's retarded, as you obviously heard. So anyway, when
Store drama.
as the antiquarian, when you're looking for signatures and stuff, the best way I heard it put is we went and got every one of the Shakespeare first folios out of the Folger Museum and the private institutes and put them all together. None of them would be the same. All of them have various type of, the press was stopped in the time. A lot of the pages have been put back in. There's different papers. So it does help to know what the gatherings are, the pagination, all that kind of stuff. So the description is actually kind of fun, but can get really involved. And quite frankly, it's never going to be my day job. I will give you a hint. The course is known as boot camp, lovingly by the people at the Rare Book School, because the first 3 days, literally, it's from 8:30 in the morning till you get home about 10 when the library closes.
Oh my goodness.
You're handed six books, and you spend your entire time trying to figure out what's wrong with them. And because that is there's a concept of the ideal book, and that basically would be what the printer would have originally handed to the binder if everything was right. But the problem, or the fun part of the letterpress era, is nothing was ever right. These were human beings. We've all probably set type or at least seen how it's done. The authors were all in there. I did get to see one of my favorite books is, because they also had shows and these little museum things they call it. It was like Life on the Mississippi. Hi, can we help you guys? Okay, we do new in the front, Antiquarian in the back, and I'm on a little broadcast here. So please feel free to guys. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Okay. And that particular one, I think you guys are probably aware that the true first has a picture of Mark Twain as a devil, and then that run that made the first 100 or so, and then Mrs. Clemens came in and stopped the presses, and there went the Mark Twain picture. But then your next for the second issue is the hotel, whether it's Clark or St. Charles Hotel. I always have to look. I sold a couple of them. I can't remember. So that was done wrong. So the third state becomes the correct hotel with no devil. So looking at that all happened in the first 500 imprints of the thing. You know, so imagine what, and that was halfway technically interesting, sophisticated era. That was the 1870s, I think. So imagine what like in the 1700s when these guys were. You think about it, you forget how much type costs. Well, these guys were setting and closing, a couple, 3 pages at a time. Some of the smaller shops, they didn't have multiple, sets of fonts. So they were setting a page, running off with, I thought, resetting it, going back, making the second edition. So the whole thing just gets very interesting and very, very technical and very, very fun. But I don't think I'm going to be a bibliographer when I grow up.
Yeah, I went to Blab about 2 years ago, and I have to say the collation was my least favorite part of the, they was taught by Terry Bellinger, and it was just like, oh my God, this is just like too much like math, and I don't really handle much really old stuff, so I think it's okay.
This is why you work with books, that you're not. This is why you work with books, because you're not interested in math, right?
Exactly.
It's funny she mentioned Terry Ballinger, and he was actually my sponsor for he got me in the Growers Club, but more importantly, he got me from Cabs to the Rare Book School. He was the original teacher. I've had him for his illustration class there. I had dinner with him in Charlottesville a couple of weeks ago. But so he's one of the people that continued on with this and made quite a career out of it. But it's like, oh my God, how can we really do this?
Is he teaching at Rare Books anymore?
So, yes, he teaches his illustration course. He teaches one a year, and the last couple of years, like when I took him, it's not during the summer school schedule. It's in October.
Okay.
He teaches it. The Rare Book School has now kind of expanded. They have courses in New York, at the Folger, at the they had 2 or 3 at Philly this year. They taught a couple at what's called the Library of Congress.
Also,
so they really
also in LA, aren't they?
There's a California Rare Book School. It has nothing to do with this one. I don't believe they did. There's also a University of Texas has some rare book classes, and they've started a similar situation in London, I understand. But they have nowhere near the depth of faculty, or I believe the Rare Book School in their repertoire, not offered every year, but on a rotating basis, has something like 100 and, what is it, Libby? It's about 120 classes, something like that, I think.
London?
There's a lot. No, in Charlottesville, the Rare Book School has about 120 classes. They rotate through, things like 17th century literature.
So they're not teaching the same thing every year. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're running. I think this year they said this is their best year. They had 400 something students with about 700 applications for whatever the math is, about 30 courses.
Yeah, because I remember early summer, they were like, oh, we need more people to apply. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is the biggest group that we've ever had. So that's really great. And it's great to see young people in the classes too. That's what's really, warms my heart is young people.
I had the discussion with a couple of faculty members there this time. I've had this with some people from CABS. Colorado Antiquarian Book Seminars had their best year ever. and they are primarily familiar with it. It's geared to teaching new, although there's many recurring people, antiquarian booksellers about the business. They had their best year ever again. Most of those people are in. I'm still on their listserv, and they're usually 30s, late 20s, 30s, 40s, coming from another career, whatever. And what I understand in the old days, before we were around, there was apprentices. You would work in a bookstore for a number of years, and then perhaps go out on your own. But I think it's fascinating. Tabs has had their best year. Rare Book School's having their best year. From what I understand from my ABA, which is new, there's been several hundred bookstores have opened in the last 3 years. The membership of ABA has gone up. So the whole thing is really, I think people have gone back to the physical. I personally am not. I mean, we sell books like this, which is my manager. It's self-help books. They drive me crazy. Part of the book, the letterpress books, the illustration. I have a very thriving children's department here, and quite frankly, people don't read their kids' children's books on an iPad. It just doesn't. It doesn't.
Because the pictures are so part of it.
Yeah, the texture of it, the pictures, the feeling of it in your hand. I have ebooks. I used to teach information technology at the university level. Annotating your reference books on the sides to me is. I don't do it on my very rare reference books, but some of my class books.
But isn't that interesting that you don't do that on your reference books, but antiquarian books that have notations in the margin are even more valuable when you find that something from the 15th, 16th century that has notations in the margin. What a discovery.
Actually, are you guys aware of the Shakespeare's Dictionary controversy? Okay, I have met those guys. I've actually bought their book. I follow their website. The latest upgrade is that Yale has agreed to, I'm not sure, accept on borrow and display their copy of that dictionary. So while Folger Shakespeare Library will not say, yes, this is the real deal, if you read the book and you follow them, there's enough of, I believe it's literary detective work, the uses of words in that dictionary where they're annotated. There seems to be no question that the annotation is fake. Was it really Shakespeare that was using these words? And if it is true, what a fantastic find that would be. That here's something that Willie himself was scribbling on.
And to me, that's what continues to make the whole rare book business, or the whole endeavor of with rare books, to be just fascinating, because those kinds of things continue to be discovered.
I'm always surprised at the score settling people do in the margins of books. I was reading recently about how Ayn Rand detested C.S. Lewis. And she would buy each of his books as they came out in the 40s and 50s and write page after page of savage comments in the margins. And then Dr. Johnson's great friend, Mrs. Thrale, who came to a breach with him when she remarried a younger Italian man named Piazzi. She had an edition of Boswell's Life of Johnson that she spent a long time scribbling furious notes in the margin of. And some years ago, I had a box set copy of that, where all of that had been reduced to print down the margins. And it truly was like an argument going back and forth between them 200 years later. He did not say that. He was not there. I was not wearing that hat.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the time has come to where we are running out of time, and has come to the segment of the show that Stephen never gets to, or he does get to, but he never calls it this. and that is the big idea, because we want to leave everybody with a big idea. So we'll start with you, Libby. If you have a single thought, a big idea that you'd like to leave everybody who's watching this, either here or on replay, a final big idea.
Okay, well, you know, what Thorne is talking about really reminds me that you can find anything anywhere, and you never know if you're going to stumble upon something, you know, because there's folios that are turning up in mall libraries and, you know, in country homes. And so, and I mean, you know, Shakespeare's dictionary, who would have even thought to look for something like that? And so that, to me, is what's amazing. And there's still treasures out there. Don't ever think, oh, everything that's good has been bought already.
Yeah.
And Thorne, a final big idea.
I wish I had it here to quote. I just got it back from, came in the mail. It's at my home. It's a personal book. It's a mystery book called, you know, I'm gonna save that for next week. I'm gonna give you the exact quote. It's a great antiquarian quote. I'm not gonna mess it up. I'm gonna save that one. But again, what Libby was saying, I consider every day here at Christmas. I never know who or what is gonna walk through the door. People ask me, what do I specialize in? And in all honesty, with great pride and fun, I specialize in nothing. I like perhaps the letterpress era, because every time I become an instant expert on something that I had no knowledge of before. I had a mystery writer comes in. I've got a bunch of mystery books now. I have a bunch of astronaut stuff that came in. All the things. I was just sitting here. I actually started to cry. I've got a copy. I've got one of that's in my display of signed by the original Apollo 11 astronauts. The three guys, well, two actually landed. One was, say the command module. I'm holding in my hand the signatures of the guys who really changed the world a bit. And I had that. The catch to that story is I was actually one of the few people in the world that didn't know we landed on the moon, because I was in the Greek island with a young lady, and she spoke German and Greek. And I didn't know until I got the New York Times that we were returning from the moon. That's another story. So the book world is fun. I'm just leaving you with.
So that was your big idea that day.
Yeah.
Lindsay?
Well, I rarely have big ideas, but I've had some small to middling ones this week. One of the things I do at Henry Bemis Books is write up little biographies of authors who have birthdays during the course of every month, to reintroduce people who are not as well known as I think they should be, help readers rediscover authors whose time may have passed. And I was struck this week by two authors whose influence seems only to grow exponentially after their death. James Baldwin, whose birthday was earlier this week, and Andy Warhol, whose birthday is today. And the multiplier effect of the work they did, Baldwin in social criticism and then in literature, Warhol in virtually every form of art, from books to sculpture, just seems to reverberate on endlessly into the future. The other thing is that England never ceases to amaze me. Libby mentioned earlier odd things turning up, folios being discovered in cupboards. England seems to be the land where everything gets misplaced.
Yes.
And I noticed today that at 4 o'clock on Radio 4 on the BBC, they're going to have a broadcast, long thought to be lost, some 50 years now, of an interview with J.R.R. Tolkien, done in 1968 when he was about to retire as a professor at Oxford. And it got misplaced, but someone found it recently and restored the tape. And so it'll be the first time I've ever heard him speak. When I was in school there, I always heard that he was a notoriously poor lecturer who disliked having to lecture at all and seemed to compensate for being made to by mumbling. So I'll be interested today to see if his radio presence is any clearer. But in the meantime, I would suggest to any aspiring collector that if you have English friends or relatives, ask them what's in the cupboards. You never know what's going to be there.
For sure. Okay, that's all the time we have. But one final reminder: the Georgia Book and Paper Fair. Am I saying that right, Libby?
Yep. Uh-huh.
And the dates for that again are?
Okay, it's September 3rd and 4th. That's a Saturday and Sunday of Labor Day weekend.
Okay, and that's in.
Friday is 10 to 5, and I think Sundays is 12 to 5. Yeah.
And that's in Decatur, Georgia.
Mhm.
And the location in Decatur?
It is downtown in the gymnasium of First Baptist Church. And First Baptist is a really big church down there near downtown.
Super. Thank you very much for tuning in today for the Rare Book Cafe. The next episode of the Rare Book Cafe will be next Saturday at 2:30 here on Blab.im. And please join Stephen Eisenstein on WDBFradio.com or Bucks on the Bookshelf, which precedes this program. It starts at noon Eastern Time on WDBFradio.com. And then please join us here on Blab.im for the Rare Book Cafe. The Rare Book Cafe is brought to you by the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair, celebrating this next year 36 years in April of 2017. That's in April. That's April 21st, 22nd, and 23rd at the Coliseum in downtown St. Petersburg, and it features more than 100 dealers from across the country. For book lovers, it is paradise. That's all the time we have now. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.
All right. Thank you all. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks.